Hey, folks, it's Lindsey Huddleston back in the building again with the SPS Edge Show with my great co-host and intern, Mr. Terry McCord Jr., always holding us down. We also have Coach Orlando Watkins. He is at the Detroit Athletic Club, Terry, a very highfalutin place. He got the nice suit on and all that, but he's still working hard to keep us set up, and we appreciate him so much. Terry, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. I got, some great news from you about, you contributing to my process and
Oh,
been
yeah.
working hard about that, getting my show together. But school's been going well. Just pushing through the last couple of weeks for the first semester.
Mm-hmm. Well, Terry, I tell you what, man, the show was going extremely well, and I was just on the phone with a colleague, looking at the rundown that you put together, man, and you do a tremendous job in carrying the weight of keeping us relevant with the topics. And I think the only challenge we're going to have is being able to give them all their just due. You got some great topics lined up for us. You want to just kind of go through the rundown for our guests, and again, shout out to the Streets is Watching podcast network. You can always check us out at 12 Eastern Standard Time on Saturdays and Sundays. Also, shout out to the Mighty Wingstop, who will be sponsoring SBS this week. We'll be over at the Mighty Wingstop. My guy Dennis Reed, author and movie mogul, be down in Detroit on Greenfield Road tomorrow. He's also sponsoring the SPS Team of the Week, which is Cass Tech High School. Terry, they're 8-0, going up against a 7-1 Woodhaven team, and SPS will be in the building bringing updates and whatnot. And also Saturday, we will be at Spartan Stadium when Michigan State hosts Indiana, top 10, number 10 Indiana, coming in to get it down. Matter of
Nice.
fact, whether they're number 10, some rank I thought I said number 7, but they're top 10 team, man. So
Yep, 10. Yep.
we're going to see what it is. But please let us know what we're going to have on tap today.
Well, first we just got to tackle a very disappointing weekend from last week. We saw, Michigan lose to Indiana, number 13 at the time, but now number 10. Michigan State coming off the high caliber win against Michigan, and they weren't able to get it done, and Iowa took it to them. So I obviously recap, think about predictions. Both teams had big games this week, with Michigan having Wisconsin at home and Michigan State having now number 10 Indiana at home. So tackling that, bringing some insight to seasonal depression, mental toughness topic, put a little spotlight on that as college students and people that are working in their jobs in their professional fields are in, this bit of a wall of where it's starting to get a little colder outside, and it's starting to get to the point where it's like, do I have that drive, that motivation to keep me getting over it, keep me rolling out of my bed to get my suit on or my clothes on, my uniform on to get to work or whatever you need to be doing. So just put a little spotlight on that. Coming into, breaking news this week, Coach Izzo being diagnosed with COVID-19, and a little bit of what he shared that I watched and that we've heard from him, being able to talk about his experience and what it means to, have prior experience from that. Well, not prior experience, but like being able the great the value it is to experience something and learning from experience. His little take on that, which I love that you shared. And so that's a bit of our rundown. A lot of things to cover today, but I think it'll be great.
No, you've done an excellent job, Terry, in putting that together. I mean, and without jumping around the topics, I mean, everything you're talking about, especially the mental toughness spotlight, because this is the time of year where people normally have their mental health being triggered or trauma, but then you add the COVID-19 piece on top of it. I mean, the city of Chicago is practically shutting down for
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, which I think is a good thing. I just got off the phone with my dad, who's an excellent, excellent cook. You have to get by that one of these summer days when we're free and whatnot. But this Thanksgiving, he's gonna do Thanksgiving to go. So my daughter and I pull up. I get my 2 days worth of food to get through, and then take out. But that was taking stuff. So I don't want to not give each topic their respective time by jumping around. You've done an excellent job. But we also want to shout out Coach Orlando Watkins, as we call him, Houston, because we're NASA out here. But right now he's at the Detroit Athletic Club, looking cleaner than the Board of Health. At the 2020 Gusty Crawford Lifetime Achievement Awards. We want to thank you, Coach Orlando Watkins, for what you're doing as the chairman of Michigan AAU and always staying connected and just being a great person. And we wouldn't be having the reach we're having without Orlando's help. So let's kick it off, man. So with our first topic, MSU had a rough week, no doubt. What you think about that?
They did. I think, I like to call these games like trap games.
Mm-hmm.
Just coming off a high intensity games like this, I think MSU, looking at the schedule and obviously with no fans, in Connect Stadium, I thought they would have lost that no matter what, because those are the games where if there were fans there, Iowa's always a tough place to play. But I knew they were going to be Michigan, but I think when you come off those high intensity games, you go on a long road trip to Iowa City, and it's a lot of people there, with fans, but now there wasn't. So I mean, it's the overlap of getting a big rival win. I mean, a little bit getting too high on the highs, and I think this kind of brought them down to earth a little bit too much down to earth. I mean, Rocky had a shaky game. That's probably his worst game of this season so far. Other than the Rutgers game wasn't as bad, but had a low QBR of 15.5. That's tough. I mean, having 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and and then once again this week, in their losses, granted they only played 3 games, they did not run the ball well. I mean, their highest total amount of rushing yards is 34 yards. So it was a tough week for them. Jalen Naylor had a great game though. Four receptions for 119 yards. So a little bit of a bright spot for them coming in.
Doubt. No, you're right. Rough week indeed. And as you know, I've been staying close to to Mel Tucker, and I appreciate his relationship and appreciate what he's trying to accomplish. And I think first week, okay, first game out, yeah, they lost to Rutgers, okay. Second week, oh, you beat Michigan, we got to win. We like this. Third week, is this our reality? Because I tell you what, Terry, it was hard for me to even post some scores, man. I was like, I'm gonna wait till I won't post every touchdown. I wait till every 2 touchdowns. But the other part about it is we have to acknowledge this too. Michigan State is in a rebuilding process, and despite how much you pay a coach, you have to realize how hard it is to win a competitive sport on every level. Middle school, high school, college, and the pros. Also, you look at that, the Indiana team coming in that we're going to talk about in a moment, but also that Iowa team, man, that's been a strong program for some time. And despite them having the issues with former players talking about, racist incidents or whatnot with the coaching staff, they were able to come together. But also, man, you're a football guy. Man, that offensive line, man, if you're not winning in the trenches, and what many say, if you don't have a quarterback that can really impact the game, as opposed to someone who's in Rocky's position at this point, where he's not able to be an impact player, with the exception of Michigan also. I mean, this is what you're going to deal with. And I think what Michigan State fans are going to have to realize is it's going to be a hard road to hoe. But, this society, man, we want it now. I mean, I went on my YouTube, the SPS Edge, after I posted one of the weekly press conferences with Coach Tucker, and somebody says, fire him. Now, I know it was just a comment, but, people just be like, man, they want what they wanted, and they'll turn around and say, we pay you all this money, you should do this. But the reality is that these are not Coach Mel Tucker's players. From what we've seen, what we've gleaned, he has a great process. Trying to, put that on there. But I think you balance that with the talent level you may have from what Coach Dan Antonio, had as they transition. And this is what you get. But rough week, no doubt. I think that I'm going to continue to have a positive outlook towards Michigan State. And I don't think that's just because I sit as a member of the media, but, I want to be objective, but I also see what's going on, man. Even with you, Terry, when you were at Eastern High School as a freshman, the program was not where it was. And by the time you transition, you guys are winning the CAAC. You guys, but that happened within your lifetime, within your short time experience. And I think what people don't want to accept, it's almost like saying that the election got stolen. Anyway, I won't go on that. But what they don't want to accept, Terry, is that it takes time to build a successful program. And despite how much money you throw into it, i.e. University of Michigan, Jim Harbaugh getting up close to $10 million, $9 million a year, it doesn't guarantee you're going to get the win. You have to build a program. You have to get the kids to buy in. And it's going to take some time. So you wonder if we won't really see a winning record, a natty type, push, big bowl games until year 2 or 3 for that matter.
Yeah, that's true. And I think I like how you put it, but, connecting it with me. I think, I think this year for MSU is going to be a very week-to-week game basis, where it's like, the team came to play last week, and then Iowa, it was one of them games where it's like, what team's going to come out? we saw the team that didn't come out to play. And so now this week, they got a bigger test at home and no fans, it's just team on team, just battling out. It's like, are they going to come out to play because the team is a little bit better? You know what I mean? So it's like one of those things where maybe they're in a scenario where they play up to they play like their competition. It's like some teams play. It might be one of those scenarios.
If Coach, I want to say Coach Fromm over at Indiana, you wonder if he's at a point where he can make his players say, look, this is an unranked team. They lost terribly to Iowa. Let's not take them for granted. Or the players can say, you know what, we're going to be okay. We're looking past Michigan State. We're looking at the next team on our schedule, and they set themselves up for something they weren't expecting. So that's definitely going to be something to watch. In the interest of this great lineup that you have, I want to move on to the next topic, which is Coach Izzo and his COVID announcement. Are you okay with that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was a big thing. And I have the brief remarks that I had with him at his presser, and I'm going to play that, okay?
Yep.
All right.
I thought it was a great, a great perspective take from him, just letting him know where he's at, and a guy that's not really big on talking to media and politics, and especially related for COVID. It was just great to see his, see his personality. Like we always love seeing him get demonstrative on the sideline. So it was cool to see him.
Well, listen, let me see if I can share. I want to share my screen. We can just play it. Why not? Because we got the technology. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go and share my screen. And here we go. And let's see what we got here. Can you see that, Terry?
Yep.
All right, great. Oh, I just want to play.
Question will go out to Lindsey Huddleston.
Hey, Tom, wishing you all the best, and you've been a great advocate for this, but from a mental toughness standpoint, is it possible that prior to COVID and everything that the program has gone through, that this has kind of better helped you respond to getting a diagnosis and being able to push forward in a certain positive way?
Lindsey, in your field of work over the years that I've known you, I think you're right on the money. I tell our players this, that there's no better teacher than experience. And experience means how you handle, how you deal with tough situations. I think of Cassius last year, that anybody handled it better than him. I had to be there every day. I had to learn, Now I'm on the line a little bit. I look at what DJ went through and how do you sit in every meeting? We don't have a meeting at our building that we don't talk about COVID and what are our players doing tonight. And, after the Michigan game, I remembered I called Mel and I said, hey, Mel, do you want the offense at your house and the defense at my house? Or do you want the defense at your house and the offense at my house? And he thought we could do both, And I don't say that jokingly. I just say, we do understand, but I think experience helps you. It's whether we can relate those experiences and get kids to buy in, but I think anytime you go through adversity, and if you come out standing, you're better served for the next thing that hits. And heaven only knows, in the last 3-4 years, we've been through a lot. And I don't think that's good that I should be able to handle things, but I do feel more experienced at handling them. And I do believe what I said, that whoever wins the Big Ten, whoever does well this year, is going to have to do it by handling all these adverse things, and nothing more adverse than COVID as of right now. So yes, I do.
Great. Well, thank you, Coach. Get better.
Thanks, man.
All right.
Right there, we got Coach Tom Izzo, Hall of Fame Coach Tom Izzo, National Championship Coach Tom Izzo, talking about his diagnosis with COVID. And kind of like to your point earlier, Terry, you talked about adversity, and that'll lead us into our next topic when we get to it. You talk about that mental health check-in. But yeah, man, that was the question I had. It was like, dude, y'all been through so much, probably more than any other program, especially when they dealt with the very public tragedy that Cassius had to experience, the issues they were having with the sex scandal as it related to Dr. Nasser, and all those things in and out the news. It's been a whole lot. And to be honest, Terry, I was thinking the last 1 to 2 years, he was like last 3 to 4. I was like, wow. So that really, he was really like, yeah, it's been a lot, man. But that's good though. And I think the one thing about this second wave of COVID that we know is coming as upon us is that the hope is we'll learn from the adversity we experienced in March. You know, my heart got broken when I was at the Big Ten championship. I was at the tournament. They were getting literally, Rutgers was on the floor, and Michigan was on their way in, and they went over to PA and they said, you know, it's been canceled. And of course, we are where we are. But I think it was great to hear from Tom Izzo, to hear someone like that come out and talk about what's going on. And ironically, when I talked to Mel Tucker about it following later that week, he had a different approach. He was more so like, you know, COVID has been with us, and my focus right now is offense, defense, special teams, media, and COVID. And they're just doing the best they can to go at it. But, you know, what's your thoughts?
I mean, exactly what he said. I mean, about experience and being able to push through different circumstances that Michigan State sports, plural, has had to push through. I mean, with the Spartan basketball team in general, I mean, just coming up with Josh Langford coming back for his season, going through, you know, what he's been through with injuries. Cassius Winston the whole season after losing his brother. You know, so I mean, they're used to it, and I like Izzo said, it's not something you want to be happy about getting used to, but I thought it was good that he had a positive outlook on it. I mean, a lot of times when people hear that they tested positive for COVID, or you know, they lost something from you know, any traumatic kind of circumstance that may happen in your life, a lot of people look at it as kind of a negative outlook on themselves. And so I think Coach Izzo has kind of just taken this as another way to learn and get better. I mean, as a Hall of Fame coach like he is, and what he's done for MSU, it's really cool to see somebody still want to learn and be involved with this world. You know, as much as we see Coach Izzo on the sideline, what I mentioned earlier, it's cool to see that he still wants to learn and, you know, adapt and get with his players, check on them, you know, looking out for, you know, you love to see sports and other sports teams looking out for each other. Like you mentioned with Coach Tucker. I mean, you could just see the MSU community trying to tackle this COVID issue.
Right. No, you're right, man. Especially when you talk about how Tom is transitioning. You know, Tom, you know, he doesn't suffer fools wisely, man, meaning that he can really make it tough on you. But I think especially with how Cassius was impacted with his brother's untimely demise and him saying, I have to learn more. And he and I had a conversation about that. There's a post of a video we did, you know, almost a year ago at the Horatio Williams Foundation tip-off. He talked about, Lindsay, I've learned a lot. I've come a long way, you know, because he and I really didn't hit it off when it came down to me discussing the mental part of the game, because he has this old school perspective. But now, as someone once told me, he wasn't really big on the soft sciences, but now he's coming around. And I think that's part of him being relevant, that he has to be able to stay in tune, and that same mindset won't work. That same Jim Boeheim zone mentality won't work. It's like, what can I do now? Who would have thought that Tom Izzo would have been getting one and dones at Michigan State? Right. He said, you know what? If I want to compete, if I want to try to be a champion, you know, in 2020 and beyond, this is what I have to do. So I think it was interesting to see that. It kind of really went as a blip. It came and it went. I mean, I remember we were talking about Coach Saban, you know, and him having it, the Arkansas coach. Whose name I forget, who has it, who's a good friend of Coach Mel Tucker. He referenced that. But no, COVID is real, man. And like just as you and I were talking, man, getting ready for Thanksgiving and the holiday, things need to be a little different. So my hope is that, you know, with this election being over, as far as I'm concerned, despite, you know, one political party trying to say it's not, that the Biden administration will continue to push for science, and that cooler heads will prevail, and we'll be able to get this thing under. I really think, man, that in a year's time, you know, 2021, 2022, of us just doing the right thing, following the right protocols, we will get through this. And you add a vaccine in that too. So, Coach Izzo, with that, I think that's an excellent transition for your next topic when you talk about that mental toughness spotlight, because, you know, you talk about people who were locked down in March. Now someone who may contract COVID, like a Tom Izzo, has to be locked down again, which I'm sure he's stir crazy, because Lord forbid had the season started and he got it. Oh my goodness. But, you know, I think you make a good point that we talked about earlier, man, that, you know, these mental health moments are real, because what about the trigger that people are going to experience? They say, oh man, we got to go through another phase of this. I remember how tough it was for me before. I remember how much of a hard time I had, and just the sheer thought of it, which is a reason people may want to push to not comply with the COVID protocols and just push to say, I don't want to believe it. Then you have, you know, a political leader in former President Donald Trump, if you ask me, or soon to be former president as of January 20th, Donald Trump, pushing, for other things and not really bringing the country together to kind of deal with this, which I think that we can do as Americans, man. Like when 9/11 happened, we had a common enemy, but at this point, unfortunately, we don't have a common enemy. Then we're looking at each other as the enemy. And I don't want to make this political, but I think that really falls under this whole idea, man. Now, you may hear a lot of people who are supporters of President Trump who are upset because he didn't win or he stole the election, but talk about the despair that Biden supporters and Democratic supporters would have had Trump won again. I think it's two different worlds as far as how people would really be depressed and upset. It's one thing if you had a candidate in or your man was in and he lost, at least you had him, compared to you were trying to get somebody out and you were unsuccessful in doing that, so be it.
Exactly.
So what's your take on that, man? When you made note of that mental health spotlight, what prompted you to want to include that in our discussion today?
Well, I just off of a conversation I've had with my mom, she was really talking.
Happy belated birthday.
She was talking about, that freshman wall, whether for any college student, that wall, November, everybody's happy about, back in school and seeing old buddies. And then once you get to November, where things get a little chilly up here in Michigan and you have to stay indoors and exams are coming at you.
Overcast. It's like it's dark and gloomy. You don't get the sun. I mean, the sun
exactly
really gets into your body and helps kind of keep you going, but you don't get that. So that's rough.
Yeah, that brings, negative thoughts and, maybe some suicidal thoughts, some down feelings that you may not be used to feeling. And it just goes to say, science says that the more sunlight you get, it affects your mood. So, I mean, just, find a way to get some sunlight. My advice to counter this, get some sunlight. A girlfriend of mine has told me to open the blinds up. She called me and it was dark and she was like, man, get some sun in there anytime you can. I was like, and it's helped. I mean, I didn't think it would. I'm like, oh man, it's nothing, just sunlight. I turn the light on, but it's like, no, sunlight gives you that energy. Find a routine, be disciplined to it, and find things to be productive in. I mean, like I mentioned before, I'm starting and putting the process for my podcast show. That's been keeping me busy. I'm not really sitting there in my thoughts and being necessarily, down in myself, because those things are real. But you always got to find some way to keep pushing through these times.
No, you're absolutely right, Jay. And I'm glad you mentioned that about the sunlight and about how we have to be proactive to do things and recognize, daylight saving time has come. It's darker, faster. And, we went from just having this, dealing with COVID, but still having some summer type experiences, and then it's gone. And then you're hearing, it might be like it was, 6 or so months ago. And I think it's going to be very important to push. You and I are very fortunate because we have projects that we are motivated by. I mean, what got me up this morning, man, was being excited about, the Mighty Wing Shop. Shout out again to Dennis Reed, and being a sponsor. Some other sponsors I want to be rolling out really soon. Easy Work, Sportswear, probably my guy, Cameron Bell, attorney at law. So I'm excited about the growth of my program and what I'm doing. But unfortunately, everyone doesn't have that. You're excited about what you're doing. And, you grow on your podcast, but unfortunately, everyone doesn't have that. So I guess my message would be, find out what's going to motivate you. We talked about Coach Izzo, use experience to know, okay, I had a rough time during this first COVID wave. The second one is coming. I'm going to be masked up. I'm going to practice social distancing. I'm going to stay positive. I'm going to get sunlight when I can. I'm going to be very proactive about the things that I'm doing with the hope that it can get us through. And it just may have to be our voices too, Terry. It just may have to be you and I trying to continue to put out a positive message, trying to encourage. I talked to some young students on the phone via virtual learning the other day, and the young lady made a really nice compliment for me saying, hey, we appreciate you always coming in and being positive. I think we can really, it's very easy to underestimate positivity, because what happens is we get too cool for school and life, and we say, oh man, I don't want to talk about that, but people need to hear positive words, man, because everybody's struggling. Everybody's going through something, and you just don't hear people talk about it. But I think what you're talking about, Terry, was really good, that mental toughness spotlight. And I think I may look at maybe bringing back the mental toughness moments, the podcast that we were doing when we would talk to individuals and say, how are you getting through this COVID thing? Because that was the main topic I had before. So now it can be, We had COVID. You know, we may have it again, though we may experience some things with it again. How are you preparing to get through it?
Yeah, and I think, the key thing that you mentioned is everyone is going through something. And so, kind of thing that lastly, I want to advise other people to do is like find groups to connect with, obviously healthy, masked up. And, even if you're doing it online, like later tonight, I have a group from MSU, fellow freshmen, sophomores, and we're just talking about the election. I mean, just politics. I mean, the young lady that started it, she's in my grade, a freshman, and
How
she
big is that
called
group, Terry?
it it's like, man, it's like I want to say like 40 students in there. And
Wow.
and I mean, it's just young people that want to learn more about politics. I mean, there's members from the right and left side of the parties, and just coming together. I think I love seeing this because this is what we're going to need in the future. I mean, people are going to disagree about different policies and all that, but one thing that we can acknowledge in the group chat, which I love, is that human rights is an issue, and we need to solve that issue. So that's something that we've all came together and talked about. That's an issue that needs to be solved, but it's really just talking about different perspectives and really just coming together and having these uncomfortable conversations that need to be talked about. So it's really good. I mean, we need to have these connections with other people during these things like quarantine to keep us going, keep us talking about something. And, everyone loves, we're human. We got to have social interaction, but make sure you're doing it safe during these times.
Yeah, you're right, man. And I want you to continue to encourage your peers, continue to feel confident in taking on the leadership role of saying, hey, we need to do this because, everyone wants to laugh and joke, but the reality is that everyone benefits from that. So that mental health moment is very important. Looking at the rest of the calendar and what we have here, how about a tough weeks for both these in-state programs? Michigan State taking on Indiana and Michigan taking on Wisconsin. You want to take us through that?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously Indiana's big win over Michigan has them rolling. I mean, now they're entered the top 10 now, looking in the inside of that, outside looking in on that playoff race. So looking up to that Ohio State game, they kind of pushed them over. So I mean, Michigan, I think they had the upper hand against Wisconsin. Wisconsin hasn't played in weeks. Wisconsin's still 1-0. They missed two
And at
games.
Michigan or at Wisconsin?
It's at Michigan. So they're going to be at home, and they're going to be home, and Wisconsin's coming in after having a huge win over Illinois, and they haven't played in 2 weeks. So Michigan is going to have some fuel, and coming off that hard loss to Indiana, 2 losses straight, and Harbaugh is getting close to that end. So I mean, they're going to come in hungry, and then on the flip side, Indiana's coming in trying to fuel and get ready. Hopefully, MSU is that roadblock that lets Indiana know that we're here to play. Like y'all not just taking a joyride through East Lansing. I mean, look, is this a roadblock? You got to come to play against us. And I think Mel Tucker will have them hungry, like he did against Michigan, and had them boys ready to eat.
Yeah, I think the Michigan win was a high among highs. It wasn't just your first win of the season. It wasn't a win after being defeated by a program that people didn't hold in high regard. It was just, it was an extreme high because you beat your rival. I mean, you probably had all kind of ideas of running the table for the rest of the season. I mean, all those things were there. You hear Coach Izzo talking about bring the guys over to the house, let's celebrate, these type of things. But you had the reality of what Iowa was, and this Indiana team is no joke coming in. That program has really worked hard, with their season. They've really kind of turned the corner. A good friend of mine, Jody Clemens, I think who talks about his experience at Indiana and getting the program to where they were. But here's the thing, though, Terry. A year or two ago, I remember people saying Indiana was a game that they would look past. Indiana was a program you have to work out. And what people have to realize that it's really about when it's your time. And in most cases, those times go within 3 to 4 years. Things recycle, things change, and I think the sports fans are amazing in the sense that they have this microwave expectation of, man, go get a great coach. Let's have a great win. It's not easy to win, man. It's not. And you really got to work really hard to do that. And I think what really happens too, Terry, is that people take it for granted those who win so well. Those programs that continuously win, that are continuously successful, people say, oh, they're supposed to do that, not knowing how much time it took. I mean, also, too, look at Tom Izzo. We're going to shift sports for a second. I mean, to have a winning record is one thing, but look how long he's been coaching. Look how long he had been in that. Look how confident he has to be in saying, I ain't going to get fired. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a big difference when you coaching and recruiting, knowing that you're not going nowhere, and you got that leverage compared to a coach that's saying, you know what, no, this is my first year. They'll give me that, but they still giving me grief for my first year. So I say both these guys got big weekends. I guess my question becomes, what is going to happen to Jim Harbaugh? Will he finish the season? Probably so. Will he finish out his contract? I don't know. Or will he leave for the NFL after this season?
I would say, I think he'd leave. Honestly, I'm gonna say this. So I think at the end of the season, I think their defensive coordinator, Don Brown, will leave first. I think he's the first one to go. Just being so stubborn to keep playing press man to man, and you've been getting killed every week. So I mean, he may rock you like a Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, he's the first guy to go. I've been hearing things and fans chirping about having Gatlin, their offensive coordinator, maybe step up and take Harbaugh's spot. But honestly, you know what? I'm really thinking that they're gonna find some excuse. They got a big recruiting class coming in.
Some excuse to keep him?
Some excuse to keep him.
Well, they got to pay him.
Some excuse.
Yeah, they got to pay him.
Yep.
And then the other part is, who do you bring in? I mean, the disadvantage of Gatlin, which I would love to support him as an African American coach, and I have no bones about saying that because of the dearth of African American coaches, in head coaching positions, especially in the Power Five and whatnot. But who do you get? Who do you replace? Because the reality is that a program like Michigan, historic program like Michigan, their thing is, we're always supposed to have the best. Who's going to come in and try to fill the shoes of Jim Harbaugh with those expectations? Now the question is, do you make a splash as far as getting a name, and what name that is, I don't know. Or do you look at someone who's a steady worker and you're going to say, we're going to support them and let them work their way up, But the reality is that, man, you can't just come in and say we're going to win. You got to come in and deal with all the adversity that comes with that. You got to have people that buy in. You got to have the right players. You got to have talent. You got to have a hell of a quarterback. Let's talk about what. Tell me what national championship team you can remember that didn't have a first round draft pick as a quarterback. And I think
probably say it goes back to that Derrick Henry Alabama team with Jake Coker as their quarterback. That team wasn't the best. The game that Clemson, if you asked Deshaun Watson, they would probably say they should have had that one, but they did the next year. They got it right back. So I probably say that goes back.
Still, look what program you had to reference. You had to reference the University of Alabama, which has been one of the most impactful programs in the country. So anything short of that, anything short of a top five, a one or two, how Clemson and Alabama will go back and forth for the national championship. I mean, short of that, man, you hit. If you don't have, and then also making sure that when you're recruiting that you have a senior quarterback. So say a quarterback who's being recruited can say, okay, I want to go there because I got a chance. So you don't have the issues that Michigan has where they recruit so many quarterbacks and you can't do that, or be in a position of Michigan State, which had for such a long time been a quarterback factory and sending quarterbacks to the NFL to have long careers or whatnot, But here we are right now, man, and I have to sometimes take my media hat off, or I should say keep it on and just stay and be objective, because you hear people calling, for people's heads all the time. But I think there's a huge difference here. I think Michigan State needs to be ready to just accept the investment they made in Mel Tucker, meaning his contract is his contract. Let's give him his contract to do what he needs to do, short of any type of character issues, which I don't think you're going to see in the Mel Tucker era, just based on my experience with him and his background. And then you look at someone like Jim Harbaugh. I just think that when you got Michigan fans saying it's time to go.
Yeah.
We'll see. But then again, Terry, but keeping it with the social justice, discussion. And again, this is no slight to Jim Harbaugh, who I like to acknowledge as being on the front line. I mean, he may not be winning, but he's sure enough saying the right things as it relates to social justice. He gets out there early. He makes no qualms about it. And I think another thing that has to do with when coaches know that they're not going anywhere, when they know that they're well-rooted, you can get one of two things. You can get a coach like Jim Harbaugh, who'll be very much an advocate for the Black Lives Matter movement, very much an advocate for recognizing systemic racism in the world and in society, and that, in America. But then you can get another coach who can be empowered to say, I have my views and I don't care because they're not sending me anywhere. But I think the one reality is that is, unless you know you're not going anywhere, unless you know it's a guaranteed contract, unless you know that short of me having some type of moral clause where I have a violation of what's morally right and ethically right, man, let these coaches stay so they can get the success they need, man, because you can't get no success looking over your shoulder. You can't have any success saying, man, am I out after a year or two? You can't have any success without seeing the players you recruit develop. It's one thing to get a great recruit. It's nothing to get them on campus. And as Coach Tucker said, you got to recruit your own players every day. You got to keep them engaged. Let's talk about this generation of athletes. Everybody's not a Terry McCord Jr. where you can sit down and sit them in a room and put them with the leaders of the school, the leaders of the team, the leaders in the community, and have that kind of mindset and relate. You got other kids that got their own set of issues, man, and they put these coaches in here who I think many of them, man, may be having a generational gap to where it's like kids are younger, the coaches are older, so you're missing that. So I went on and on for a little while, but, what's your take on that?
I would agree on that. I think, most of the thing about when you're recruiting, as an athletic department, you always got to think what's best for your team. And so when you have these coaches that are out there recruiting, you mentioned it earlier about, having that leeway to be like, I'm not going nowhere, so I can bring these players in knowing that I'm going to be here for the long run and I can develop you as a player. But a lot of these programs like Indiana, who was one of those programs compared to like an Ohio State, it's like, if I go to Indiana back then, before the success they're having now, do I know that that coach is going to be there for that long? Or am I going to get a different set of, that's why I think a lot of these players that sign early, you know what I mean, or that commit early, it's like, and that decommit when their coach leaves or gets fired. And that's why you see a lot of coaches that feel bad when they leave these teams, kind of like how PJ Fleck did back whenever he was at Western Michigan. He's bringing all these players in, and then PJ takes a job out there in Minnesota. And so then those players are like, man, like I'm here with a coach who didn't really want me, but I'm here with his philosophy, and I was supposed to be here for a different guy's philosophy. So, I mean, it's a lot of different – it's a business. Like I mentioned, it's a sports business. And, having the feeling of looking over your shoulder and trying to see if, if you're going to get fired or not. I'm probably sure James Franklin is feeling the same way, which I think he's going to probably get fired before Harbaugh. But it's just a take right there. But, I mean, it's tough, man. It's a hard job. But, Coach Tucker got a good payment for the work that he has cut out for him. And, I think he has that mindset, and his mental toughness is off the charts. So I think he's going to get it under control for sure.
I mean, what I was doing, I wasn't not paying attention to you, Terry. First of all, let me clarify. I said Coach Allen is the coach at Indiana. He's been in that position since 2016. So 4 seasons, Terry, for him to be able to be a top 10 team in the country. He wasn't that last season. He was that. So that's just 4 seasons it took him. Iowa's coach, Kirk Ferentz, he's been there since 1999.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
winning and winning.
So, I mean, look how long it's taken. So when you see the outcome of what Indiana has been doing this season, 3-0, you see the outcome of what Iowa has done just in that one game in Michigan State. You're talking about 25 seasons worth of coaching with the programs they're with, compared to how much heat you go put on a guy who came at the end, who you got. You're lucky that you got him when you did.
Yeah.
Athletic director Bill Beekman, man, he was spending a lot of gas on that jet. He stayed, man. I saw Bill Beekman at the press announcement for Coach Tucker when he got here, and you talk about somebody who looked like he was beat down. Private jet is one thing, but he was traveling the country going back and forth trying to get this coach in there so you can get something going. And then, no one expected that. They said the ideal time, if Coach D'Antonio would have announced his retirement after the bowl game, that could have set things in motion. Now, that doesn't mean that it would have been Mel Tucker here, but the reality is that here we are. Mel Tucker is a consummate professional. I remember asking him about, the fans and how they were responding after, the week 1 loss. And this thing is like, man, they're going to love us when we're doing good, and they're going to be honest when we're doing bad. And I get it. And then also after the Iowa loss, he expressed his disappointment. And even members of the media were like, man, he's mad. I was like, yeah, he's mad. Because he set expectations, But I think what we're really kind of touching around, Terry, and not to say we're purposely doing it, is the reality that how much leeway does a black head coach get compared to a white head coach? Now, I call it like that. Iowa hasn't always been winning. That man been in that position since 1999.
Yeah.
This is 2020. So 20 plus years. Coach Allen at Indiana, he's had 4 years. And the reason I think 4 years is important, because normally, man, people get fired after their second, third year. Third year, you're not looking at like, I don't know. So now him, getting, this top 10 ranking, and based on how they finish their season, they may lock him in. But the reality is that black coaches don't have that leeway. And I don't care what you say. At the end of the day, they know that Mel Tucker is an African-American coach. You look at him and see it. Now, it's funny you mentioned that about Coach Franklin at Penn State. He has a hell of a recruiting class as always. They're struggling. He struggles to beat Ohio State, you know what I'm saying, and whatnot. So you wonder what would be the deal. But the thing is, fire him for who? To get who in there? To do what? To do and this is not even me saying, though I'm wearing Penn State colors right now, this is not even me saying I'm all about Coach Franklin. I don't have a dog in that fight. But, this idea of like, what happened to just like, what? Let's get somebody in here. Let's support them. Let's give them what they need. It's going to be ups and downs. We're going to support our guy, and do that compared to saying, I want to get him out of here. Then you had this coaching carousel, between, they'll go sit out for a minute, then they'll get another head coaching job. But it's like, I guess their whole thing is, man, get the money while you can and do what you can, because you really don't have that much control over it. Because if you don't inherit a great program, i.e. Ryan Day, at your beloved Ohio State. And I ain't saying nothing bad about Ohio State, Terry. I know you'll jump through this Zoom on me.
Oh, yeah. No.
I'm not saying something bad about them. But no, I just really think that what I think I'm going to do, Terry, going forward, and I'd love for you to hold me accountable to this. I want to use my platform to really say, you gave the man a contract for 5-6 years. Just let the man have his contract. Play the contract out. As they love to say, it's business. You gave the man a contract. You have faith in him for X amount of time to pay him. Give him the money. Let him do his thing. And short of any moral shortcoming, any ethical shortcoming, just step back and support him. It's so crazy, man, when these university programs are lackluster in supporting people. Like even with Jim Harbaugh, okay, Michigan Ward, you gave him the contract. Just stay with him till the contract's over and do it like that. And give African-American coaches like Mel Tucker the same type of deference. That's what I have to say about it.
Yeah, my thing though is that like people forget what James Franklin has taken Penn State from. I mean, he came in after the whole Paterno and Sandusky thing, and then the Bill O'Brien came in before him.
Bill O'Brien was a placeholder. They told him, come take this hit and we'll take care of you. That's why he ended up getting the Texan job for infamy and whatever or not. And then that was over. And then Coach Franklin came in to do the same thing. But you're right.
So I mean, Coach O'Brien came in, not really winning as much, not beating Ohio State, not beating Michigan State, not beating those teams.
There was no expectation. He
None.
was just kind of be a solid figure holder, a placeholder, until an opportunity came along and they took care of him for that.
And then there's the scholarship issues. They lost a lot of scholarships because of the punishment of what Mr. Sandusky did back then.
So.
Right. So, I mean, just inheriting that program from that and then taking them to winning the Big Ten championship in 2017 against Wisconsin, a good Wisconsin team, going to the Rose Bowl. They fell short to USC and Sam Darnold, but I mean, still producing players like Barkley and all those different coming in, kind of setting them up for Penn State to come back to those glory years. And it felt good, to watch Penn State win again, because that was like the prime years of the Big Ten. So finally that team to come up, give Ohio State that challenge that, I'm going to say we needed to kind of get us over and compete for national championships. It was always good for the Big Ten to win.
And they're doing a great job recruiting. They got 3 players coming out of the Metro Detroit. They have a Belleville player, Amari. Met him a while ago. Real good kid, linebacker, big kid. He's going to go in and do some damage. You got the King twins. I want to say Kobe and I forget the other young man's name at Cat, but I'll be seeing them tomorrow. But they're doing an excellent job. So his recruiting is still strong. It's just like, but college sports, as so many other things. What have you done for me lately? They like relationships. You could have been everything was good a week ago, but like, what's going on now? I'm looking at the time. We're doing a great job. Again, I want to shout out the Streets is Talking Podcast Network, which will be on Saturday and Sunday. You go to www.thestreetsoftalking.com. I want to shout out SPS Team of the Week sponsor, Dennis Reed at the Mighty Wing Shop. I'll be down there in Detroit, my hometown city, Detroit, tomorrow. over there on Greenfield. We'll be getting it in. We'll be doing some Facebook Live going on before I go over to the Cavs game and see that. I'll probably catch the second half and see how that finishes. I really think Cavs on the road to Ford Field. I think they're going to be a championship team. Just how they roll and whatnot. They call themselves the Beasts of Detroit. And with the time we have left, man, we talk about another topic that I love, Terry. We talk about the NBA. I appreciate how you doing such a good job producing this and putting it together. We're talking about the NBA. We're talking about the NBA draft. And as you say, the challenges that some of these general managers may be facing with trying to get some great scouting going on amidst this pandemic when they don't have the normal opportunity to look at them. And they're not getting down like Rich Paul is getting down when he's just having his own pro day for his guys. So, what you think about that?
I mean, so coming into it, we know I'm projecting LaMelo or Anthony Edwards to go 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. And then moving down, you see teams like Chicago where Zach LaVine may be getting shipped off to maybe the Lakers, Mavericks. The bigger teams are looking to take that counterpiece that they were building around. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, maybe Chicago takes a different approach. They were looking to get the big man, projected maybe out of USC or Kongwu. So maybe they take a different approach. But then again, you see Cassius and Xavier Tillman later in the early second round. I like Cassius with the Spurs. They may be projecting him around 38, 41 pick. I like him with the Spurs.
I would just say, just to interrupt, that's where relationships play a huge role because Brent Forbes has been there. Popovich is that kind of coach where you can see that relationship. You see Cassius has a Tony Parker-esque type game.
Oh, yeah.
And then, I remember a time a couple years ago where I would be talking to coaches on the staff at MSU, and they talk about how they would get calls from all these GMs saying, talk about your players. And they even called them about players that they didn't even have at Michigan State, but that they recruited. So Michigan State is well respected when it comes down to draft time. And I think that any team that gets Cassius Winston or Xavier Tillman is going to get a great kid with a great pedigree. And I shouldn't even say kid because these guys are super mature based on their life experience. Of course, Cassius and what he's dealt with his brother's passing. And then, of course, Xavier Tillman being married with 2 kids handling his business. So please keep it going.
Right. Yeah. So just, I think the biggest challenge of all this, whether it's like free agency coming up and moving pieces for these teams trying to rebuild, the biggest challenge is these rookies that don't get drafted in the summer league. There is no summer league this year. I'm not projecting that the league is going to have any kind of form of way that I've heard of yet of doing a summer league. So we got players that declared for the draft that may not get a chance to show what they can do. I mean, you see guys in the past like Kyle Kuzma and Alex Caruso, I'm just saying like great Lakers, players that have played really great in the summer league.
Maybe one great Laker, but anyway, I don't want to say that.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, great Lakers summer league teams. The Lakers, by far we know back then before LeBron, they were always in that lottery area. So I mean, we see players.
Disappointment with Kyle Kuzma's play in the bubble. I was just disappointed. I had a side note. I really struggled, Terry, because as you know, I'm here as a sports psychology consultant, and I want the best. But I think my bias for the Lakers' success made me upset with Kyle. Like, come on, Kyle, like hit the shot, man. But anyway, I digress on that. But you're right. No summer league, and those summer leagues are opportunities to create, stars, give guys an opportunity. But I'll be willing to bet that maybe after they get the regular season underway, starting December 22nd, and they get that season going, they may call for the summer league on the back end, so it can go between. I mean, I bet they can definitely do it in the bubble. They'll just do the bubble all over again, whatever.
Yeah.
But go ahead, please, though. You're making some excellent points.
I think so. I would, because the draft's next Wednesday, the 18th.
Yep.
I think maybe they throw in like a little 2-week kind of round robin kind of thing to get the players playing and get the, the ownership and the GMs looking for their young talent. I mean, we're talking about like Minnesota, who may get an Anthony Edwards to see how that project is going. Charlotte would love to see, because they're projected to pick James Wiseman. A guy that sat out due to like some eligibility issues.
He said, "Peace, I'm out." He said, "You know what? I'm out."
Yeah.
But you know what? It almost was the best move because the season got cut short.
Right.
He was able to totally focus on his draft, increasing his draft stock. And I love it that it was like, you know what? We gonna just keep it moving on y'all. So we don't always got to play to that. And I think that was a great counsel he had with Penny. And then again, man, I digress, but that's another thing that if it was any other coach, would they be giving them that grief? You know, Penny looked out for the kid. You know, he used the resource that he had. They love him. He's the man. But that ended up happening. But again, I digress with that. You know, I always be looking for a fight somewhere, it seems, sometimes when I be talking on the podcast, man.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a coach looking out for his guy who's projected to be the number 3 pick in the first round. So I know Charlotte would love to see him.
What do you think LaMelo Ball is going to end up doing in the NBA?
I think, I think it depends on the team he gets. I think if he's with the Warriors, I think it's a great company to be next to Curry and Klay Thompson with that Steve Kerr kind of oiled machine, kind of like ball movement. Because Melo is a really good passer. I think a lot of times people forget about his scoring ability. And he has a little awkward jump shot, but, I mean, it goes down. So I think, him kind of being growing into being that vocal point, that playmaking, and because I would like to say Golden State kind of has that free reign of offense. So I would love to see Melo go to the Warriors. I think Anthony Edwards is going to go to Minnesota. I think he'll be a great tandem with him.
Minnesota's almost like, man, you don't even want anyone to go to Minnesota, man. I mean, I hate to say that, and I wonder if that played into Juwan Howard not even wanting that opportunity when they were going to bring him in as associate head coach, whatnot. Yep. Like, Minnesota, I don't know if it's just, I don't know what it is, man. I mean, going back to when KG left Minnesota, he just couldn't get it done there. They thought they had something with Starberry and KG years ago, but just Minnesota as a program just doesn't, get me to think that that's the way to go.
It's just the ownership. I mean, people have thought about maybe KG going back and buying the Timberwolves and kind of getting a different kind of mentality.
Supposedly, he was promised that deal, but it wasn't in writing. So that just goes to show you that he was told that, are we going to do this? And him learning the lesson of, if it ain't in right, it doesn't exist, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, you got to go get it, especially in this league where things aren't always official. I mean, a GM will tell you, hey, we're looking to build for you long term, and they see a better deal. I mean, we've seen that with IT, with the Celtics, him, dedicating that season, fighting through the traumatic experience he had with his sister, fighting through injuries, and, they shipped him out quick to get Kyrie, and we saw how that worked out.
Yeah,
so, I mean,
exactly.
It's a business.
Well, I think we have to keep that in mind. No, Terry, you've been doing an excellent job, man. I'm really excited for you and your growth and what you're going to bring, even not just from a sports standpoint. When you talk about you're one of some 40 other, college freshmen who are getting together to discuss their views, and not just in a vacuum, not just, one side, or you're able to be open to other views and whatnot. But I think that also plays into sports. I think sports is going to continue to be a beacon for us in this country right now, that even though we may be divided, and even though you probably can have the conservatives going with football and the liberals going with basketball, the reality is that sports is something that can inspire us. And we're doing really well, I think, with this platform to be able to put a good message out. So in the interest of time, because I want to make sure we stay within our time so we can get a great show recorded in its entirety on the Streets of Talking podcast. We've had a great discussion on a number of things, man. So what do you think going into next week is going to be the biggest news issue of the day, whether it's sports or something else? What do you think we're trending towards going into next? What do you see next week's headlines being like?
Well, one would be the NBA draft. We just touched on that. But then again, now we're talking about, we've seen Ohio State, their game was canceled this week against Maryland due to some questionable protocol issues with Maryland having a bunch of COVID tests being positive. I mean, Ohio State's running into the problem where, they want enough games to prove and present a case to get into that college football playoff. So
yeah, and unlike the NFL, see, the NFL has that competition committee. Well, they'll say, okay, we're going to look and we're going to crunch the numbers. And I don't know if that's happening with college football. So no matter what, you're going to have an asterisk by it. But I mean, that's what's happening in this time of COVID.
Exactly. And I think, just with that, with COVID, I mean, you're seeing teams like, I think Ohio State would get in, but I think a lot of times it may affect their ranking because of teams that aren't following protocol. And a guy like Justin Fields, who I look up to as a person, has talked about his sacrifice. I mean, it's him and his dog in their own little area, and he's staying with him, and he's talking about the discipline factor of it, wanting what he wants. He wants a Heisman Trophy, and he wants a national championship. So, I mean, a lot of teams aren't really fulfilling that discipline factor that's needed to play these games, but we're seeing Ohio State, which I'm a proud fan of, doing a great job of that. So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, you want teams to play those games and prove why they should be there. But then again, it's like they're going to be there no matter what.
Right. I get it. Well, excellent stuff, Terry. Well, I won't keep us too long on this, man. I'm glad that we have this platform. I'm glad that we can share. My hope is that when it's shared amongst the different platforms, including the streets as we're talking, that people can get something good from it. I hope it's a positive check-in for people. You do a great job with keeping our topics fresh and up to date. It's really a cathartic download for me because I look at what you have. I'm like, oh man, we get to talk about this. We get to talk about that. And it kind of just gives me a nice little midway break between now and getting ready for the games of the weekend. Like I said, I'll be at Spartan Stadium on Saturday to see Indiana come in, and we'll see how that goes starting at 12 noon. I'll keep you posted on that. And also this Friday, I'll be in Detroit, be at the Mighty Wing Shop. My guy, Dennis Reed, will be representing, and we'll be over at Cass Technical High School. And what I think is probably still going to be a Cass victory because of their sheer dominance. So before we go, you got anything you want to close us out with today?
No, just a little recap about the mental toughness spotlight.
Please.
Just keep your heads up, control only what you can control. I mean, I say that as a sense of being optimistic, with whatever you're going through. Worry about what you got now. Don't spend too much time worrying about the future. I mean, you got your goals, always win today. Don't worry about forget about tomorrow. If it's bad, see what you can do, recap and push forward. If it's good, see what you can do to keep that going and keep pushing forward. It's all about getting through the day. You got to win the day. Just like how, what Notre Dame has that little thing, play like champions. I mean, you got to go with
every like day. Today. Hit the top going down.
Yep.
I like the win the day. I like that. And I think all our viewers and listeners can really learn from that because I think stress really comes when we think about things that are beyond our control, beyond the day. But if you can win today, like right now, we're champions today. In this moment right now, we just crushed this podcast. I'm going to get with my guy later on, give him a nice little care package, give him a little piece of technology to help him go so he can get himself set up. I'm going to get to Detroit and get prepared for what's going on. So my point being is you're absolutely right. You want to focus on the moment, stay present in the moment. If you do that, you realize that a lot of things that are giving you anxiety that you're concerned about are things that don't even come to pass. So with that, myself, Lindsey Huddleston with the SPS Edge Show, thanking my co-host and intern and soon to be his own man as we get ready to get him set up to get out here in this world and get the Terry McCord Jr. podcast popping. I'm going to love to be able to just check in and listen to that as we get ready to go into that. But Terry, I just want to thank you for another great show. I want to wish you the best this week. Go forward and continue to be positive, man. And you inspire me, young brother. So you keep it up and keep it going. And we'll be back next week with the SPS Edge Show. So thank you guys for tuning in. See you next time.